In this lesson, we'll review a sentence completion problem. It's part of the critical reading section. We're on page 605, question 6 out of 6, so we know it's a difficult problem. A scientist should not automatically reject folkways that might at first seem silly or superstitious. Scientific qualifications are not a license for blank, nor do they blank, prejudice, or bias. So let's look for the keywords and always try to predict the answer before looking at the choices. So a scientist should not simply reject folkways. Folkways are just common customs, shared customs, or cultural practices that might seem silly or superstitious. So he shouldn't just automatically reject these cultural beliefs. Scientific qualifications are not a license for blank, nor do they blank, prejudice, or bias. So here, just because a person's a scientist, you shouldn't automatically reject these folkways that are silly or not supported by science. Scientific qualifications are not a license for some type of prediction. You're not going to get the exact word, but some type of word like supremacy, that he is absolutely right, and because of science and empirical data, he shouldn't reject these silly or superstitious folkways, nor do they, and here we've got a prejudice or bias, so some type of word like nor do they excuse or allow for prejudice or bias. So that's sort of the prediction. Now let's look at the answers. Now with the two blank ones, you have the advantage, I think, of having two blanks, because you can look for, this is the first blank here, and this is the second. So we know we're looking forward like supremacy. Let's just focus on the first blank for now. So, and by the way, you could do the second if you're more confident with that, but I think supremacy is a pretty good guess. Experimentation, that has nothing to do with supremacy. Remember, we're looking for, it's always going to be a plus or minus term, and experimentation sort of a neutral term. Now, arrogance does work for supremacy, and that's definitely a charged word. It's a plus or minus word, arrogance, and that would work. So we'll just leave this open. And humility, that's sort of the opposite of supremacy. Supremacy is of sort of like thinking absolutely that your belief is right and better than others. Humility is sort of being humble or modest. That could not possibly work. And smugness is pretty much the same word as arrogance and supremacy. So both B and D work so far. And rigidity, being rigid, inflexible, it's not close enough. I mean, you could maybe leave it open, but I wouldn't necessarily. I don't think it's a close enough fit, but we'll just leave it open. And then excuse, nor do they pursue prejudice. So that doesn't work at all. Pursue. So now this is out. And then now here we've got, this is not legitimate, the adjective. Remember, the parts of speech are all parallel. So eliminate, pursue, advocate, these are all verbs. So this is legitimate, the verb, which means to allow or promote, nor do they allow for or excuse prejudice or bias. This is definitely the right choice. Console, in E, makes absolutely no sense. Console is like to comfort someone in a time of grief. Doesn't really fit at all. And so the answer here is D, smugness and supremacy. Legitimate, I know, is not the same as excuse, but you want some word, nor do they allow for, or nor do they excuse prejudice or bias. The answer is D. All right. See you next time. Thanks for watching.